History often pivots on the grand strategies of empires and the bravery of soldiers. But sometimes, the most powerful force shaping events is nature itself. One such incredible tale comes from the summer of 1588, when the seemingly unstoppable Spanish Armada set sail, only to be thwarted by a force they could never have prepared for, the wrath of the sea. By the late 16th century, Spain was the most formidable power in Europe. Under King Philip II, the Spanish Empire spanned continents, its riches flowing from colonies in the Americas. But Philip's ambitions extended beyond wealth. He sought to reassert Catholic dominance in Protestant England, overthrowing Queen Elizabeth I, who he considered a heretic and a threat. To accomplish this, Philip assembled the Spanish Armada, a fleet so massive and well-armed that it was called the Invincible Armada. The Armada consisted of 130 ships and over 30,000 men, including soldiers, sailors, and priests prepared to convert England back to Catholicism. The fleet was not only a military force but also a symbol of Spain's divine mission. The plan was to sail through the English Channel, link up with Spanish forces in the Netherlands, and launch a full-scale invasion of England. The stakes couldn't have been higher. On the other side, England was an underdog. Its navy was smaller and less experienced. But Queen Elizabeth's commanders, including the brilliant Sir Francis Drake, had a secret weapon: speed and adaptability. The English ships were more agile and easier to maneuver than the towering galleons of the Spanish Armada. They relied on hit-and-run tactics to wear down the enemy rather than face them in direct combat. The first clashes between the two fleets began in July 1588 as the Spanish Armada approached the English Channel. For days, the English harried the Spanish ships, forcing them into defensive formations. Yet, the Armada pressed on, maintaining its course toward the planned invasion. It seemed that no amount of English resistance could stop the sheer size and power of Spain's fleet. And then, the winds began to change. As the Armada moved closer to its rendezvous point with Spanish forces in the Netherlands, the weather took a dramatic turn. A sudden and violent storm, later nicknamed the Protestant Wind, swept through the English Channel. The storm scattered the tightly packed Armada, breaking its carefully maintained crescent formation. Spanish ships were driven off course, some colliding with each other, others pushed into the rocky shallows. Taking advantage of the chaos, the English launched fire ships, vessels packed with explosives and set ablaze, into the disoriented Spanish fleet. The Spanish captains, fearing explosions, cut their anchors and scattered further into the channel, their fleet now in complete disarray. But the nightmare for the Armada was far from over. The storm intensified as the Spanish ships tried to retreat northward into the North Sea. Lacking proper navigation and supplies, many ships ran aground on the coasts of Scotland and Ireland. Thousands of sailors perished in the freezing waters or were killed by locals fearing invasion. When the shattered remnants of the Armada finally returned to Spain months later, only about 67 ships remained, and most were barely seaworthy. Nearly half of the men who had embarked on the mission had died. The Invincible Armada had been decisively defeated, not just by English resistance but by the merciless forces of nature. The failure of the Armada had profound consequences. Spain's aura of invincibility was shattered, and its dominance as a global superpower began to wane. Meanwhile, England emerged stronger, its naval prowess now recognized across Europe. This victory marked the beginning of England's rise as a maritime empire, a legacy that would shape world history for centuries. The story of the Spanish Armada is a humbling reminder of humanity's vulnerability in the face of nature. Despite all their might, planning, and divine conviction, the Spaniards were undone by the unpredictable winds and waves. It's a tale of ambition, courage, and the unyielding power of the natural world. So, next time you hear the phrase, "weathering the storm," remember the summer of 1588, when the winds of fate blew away the dreams of an empire and altered the course of history forever.